In this video, I'm gonna explain what happens when you are in the middle of buying a house and your appraisal comes in short. Not the ideal situation to be in, but it's not a deal killer. Now, before I dive into that, do me a huge favor, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you get more content like this. All right, so let's dive into the situation. You're in the middle of buying a house, you're getting a mortgage, and part of that process typically includes getting an appraisal. Well, what happens when that report, the value on that report, it comes in lower than what your purchase price is? Well, there's a few different ways that this can go. The first way would be that you pay the difference. Basically, let's say that you were buying a house for $700,000 and you had intended on doing a 5% down payment. So up to this point, the lender has been structuring your loan as if you're making a 5% down on $700,000. But wait, that appraisal came in short, and let's say that that value was $690. Well, the way that it would work is basically you'd pay the 10 grand difference, and then the lender is gonna base your loan off of the $690. So you do 5% on $690. Now that may not be the most ideal for you. Another way is that you go back to the seller. You gotta renegotiate the purchase price. This doesn't always work in your favor, depending on how competitive the market is and how competitive the property that you're in escrow to purchase is. The seller may or may not be willing to play ball. But let's say they are, and they drop the purchase price. In that case, then hey, score, you just got 10 grand for free, basically. Now, the other way that it could go is that you and the seller meet in the middle. Maybe you now make the purchase price $695, and you got to come up with the 5 grand difference between the $695 and the $690, and then the lender is still going to base your mortgage off of the $690, and you can get the deal done that way. Now, another way to approach this, and this kind of tends to be like everybody's go-to right out of the gate, however, it's somewhat of a futile effort in most cases, is to basically rebut, meaning like disagree with the appraiser's findings. Well, in order to do that, you don't just submit like a ticket somewhere and say, hey, I don't agree with you. You got to provide evidence of your reasoning on why the value should have came in at, say, that $700,000 we've been talking about. Well, that evidence that I'm talking about are comparable sales. And since the appraiser has access to the same MLS data systems that real estate agents do, it's very unlikely that the appraiser did not have access and basically know about other comparables that would have made the value much higher. And let's say that there were comps. That doesn't necessarily mean that the appraiser is going to agree that the comps that you provide are better than the comps that they use. So although there are scenarios where people have been successful in rebutting the value on their appraisal, I would say that that's probably the least likely to occur in all of the things that I just talked about. You're probably more likely going to get the seller to drop the price versus the appraiser change the value. And this is one of the reasons why you may not want to release or not include what is called an appraisal contingency. When you look at a standard real estate purchase contract, there's various contingencies. Basically, like if this happens, you can get out of it without losing your deposit. Well, typically one of those things is an appraisal contingency. And as long as we get that appraisal report back before that contingency is due, then if the appraisal comes in low, you can back out if you'd like and get your earnest money deposit back unscathed. But what if you wanted to move forward? Well, the other things that we've talked about, whether you come up with a difference, the seller comes up with a difference, or maybe you guys meet in the middle, that's where that would come into play. Another question that comes up is, well, how about we just get another appraisal from a different appraiser? And all that is possible, you got to be working with a mortgage broker to pull that off, because if you're working directly with a lender, the lender's not going to let you do that. That's going to violate their policies, procedures, ethics. It's going to be a compliance issue. But let's say you're working with a mortgage broker. Well, they're not tied to one lender. They could cancel that deal with that lender, which includes that appraisal, and start up somewhere else and order you a new appraisal. Now, that doesn't mean that that's going to be the silver bullet, because who knows, maybe that appraisal comes in at the same value or even less, and then you've got the same problem to deal with. If you got questions about appraisals, put them in the comments below. Maybe I'll make a video about it. See you on the next one.